this is our presentation on our industrial simulation final project.
The agenda for this presentation, first we're going to do the introduction, then we'll move into our problem statement, followed by the modeling information, as well as stating our assumptions that we generated. Then we'll move into a scenario review, the results from our OpQuest analysis, and then we'll talk about the optimizations and conclusions that we've arrived at.
So I'm Cami Brown. I am going to graduate in May of 2020, and I have an internship with BNSF this upcoming summer. Fun fact about me, I like giving gifts more than I like receiving them.
And I am Gretchen Cummings. I'm graduating in May 2019. I've accepted a job with Hormel Foods in Des Moines, Iowa. And a fun fact about me is I wear a different pair of Christmas socks every day of December.
I'm Kyle Cooney. I'm a senior in industrial engineering and mechanical engineering. I'll be working for John Deere after graduation. And a fun fact about me, every gift I've ever given has been a re-gift.
I'm Madeline Triggs, and I also graduate in May of 2019. I'm working full-time at BNSF Railway in Kansas City, and then a fun fact about me is I make all of my Christmas gifts.
And I'm Zach Stanley. I'm also graduating in May of 2019, and I'm set to work full-time for Deloitte Consulting starting next summer.
For our problem that we wanted to solve, we were looking at a Costa Rican retail company that is wanting to expand their locations into South America and the Caribbean. Central America consists of countries including Costa Rica, Guatemala, and El Salvador. The South American market will include Uruguay and Paraguay, and of course the Caribbean will be servicing Jamaica. The company wants to fulfill these orders directly from Asia in scenario 1, or in scenario 2, they're trying to determine if they want to invest in regional distribution centers. Values to analyze are going to be primarily in terms of service level and of course profit generated annually.
So following that, some of the methodology that we used throughout this model were two inventory models. The first one, a periodic strategy. So we used a timer to kind of model this, and essentially what it did was if the the timer checked the inventory after a certain amount of days, and if the inventory was below our reorder quantity, then the timer would automatically generate a new order. And then the second model was a continuous strategy, so we used monitor elements to model this, and so that essentially a monitor will just automatically fill an order every time the inventory drops below a certain level. And continuing off that, we had two different scenarios, the first one involved a local distribution. So this is when the orders came from the Asian manufacturing companies and were routed directly to the respective countries. And then the second scenario involved a regional distribution, so this was kind of the middleman. So orders came from Asia to a facility in Miami or Panama, and then was shipped on to the respective companies or countries.
So we made some assumptions going into the model, and so we assumed the initial inventory of the regional distribution center was equal to the total initial inventories of the local destinations. That way we could just have that as a set number and we didn't have to worry about changing that one. And then we found the optimal order quantities and made those set using the EOQ formula with the holding cost and total cost and the demand. And then we had the regional fulfillment centers do not hold inventory, and then we have all of our data right there.
So like Madeline said earlier, we had two scenarios. The first scenario involved only local distribution centers for each of the countries. So orders came from Asia and they went to Caribbean, Central America, and South America. The movement of products, like I said, went directly from Asia to the countries, and each country is its own local distribution center. In scenario 2, we had regional distribution centers and we were trying to determine which location worked best. So we had Panama and Miami. So orders went from Asia to the regional distribution center and then to their respective countries.
So this is just an overview of how we laid out our model for scenario 2. Scenario 1's pretty similar, only we didn't have the regional distribution centers in Panama and Miami. But to give you a quick overview of what we did, we have the orders that are coming in and possibly fulfilled if we have enough inventory, routed through unique sources for each country based on each region. And if those are fulfilled, they go to sinks, and if not, they go to lost sales, which was calculated as lost profit that we'll get into later. And for reorders to these local distribution centers that are fulfilling those orders, we routed everything from the manufacturing facility in Asia, in a server there, all the way to either the regional distribution centers in scenario 2 or directly to those local distribution centers in scenario 1. And so we incorporated costs and travel times into these time paths and sinks, and that's where we were able to calculate our total revenue for a year of simulation, as well as total costs, and thus the total profit from those. And so just to give you a quick idea of some of the model logic we used to make this happen, we had a lot of add-on processes. One of them was for using a periodic review policy with timer elements, where we had decisions within each of those processes to determine what the value of those timers were, and based on that we executed different reordering processes for different values of those timer elements. And so we also made sure that we incorporated one important aspect of the model, which was a delay of 1 week for each ship going to certain regions, and we have unique processes for those as well. And then one other process I'm going to walk through real quick is the continuous process, which is right here, and it's pretty similar to what we use with the timer elements, only we use monitor elements this time, and use decide steps to determine at what point we would reorder for each of those local distribution centers or for a regional distribution center.
To work with the optimization, we used OptQuest to figure out what was optimal for those points. And we did this by putting in the initial inventory, reorder periods, reorder quantity, and we had those fixed. And then that way we were able to find the optimal reorder point and reorder policy through that. And then we used all of these at 95% confidence intervals, and we looked at profit primarily. And with our results for local distribution, we had a profit of $303 billion. For Miami, routing through Miami, we had a profit of $160 billion. And then routing through Panama, we had a profit of $155 billion.
Some conclusions that we were able to draw from our simulations was that primarily local distribution centers with a continuous review generates the most profit annually. Specifically, we found about $303 billion on average. And in terms of cost, it's only operating at about $79 billion. So plenty of room for profit. If we look at unfulfilled sales, we are losing about $37 billion annually, but compared to our other results in our simulation, we find that number still to be rather minimal. Alternatively, if the company did decide that they wanted to invest in local distribution centers, even though our results beg to differ, the DC Regional Fulfillment Center would be their best result.